Elite environments don't break people, they compress them. And compression is not emotional, it's structural. When pressure increases, what used to feel stable suddenly doesn't. Not because you became less capable, but because the margin disappeared. Every performance system operates with margin. Margin is the gap between your current stability and the minimum required standard. In low pressure environments, margin is wide. You can afford inconsistency. You can afford occasional inefficiency. You can afford emotional fluctuation. You can rely on bursts instead of structure. The system absorbs your instability. There is slack, and elite environments remove slack. Now margin becomes thin, and thin margins do not tolerate randomness. They reveal weak joints, not weak intelligence, weak structure. Imagine someone who performed comfortably in school. Occasional inconsistency never mattered. They could recover from a weak test, they could rely on bursts of effort, they could be slightly inefficient and still succeed. Now they enter a highly competitive institution. Everyone there was high performing somewhere else. Evaluation becomes frequent. Relative ranking becomes visible. Small mistakes shift position. Nothing changed about their intelligence, but the system stopped absorbing their instability. That's compression. When margin shrinks, performance volatility increases and something psychological shifts. Before compression, a bad result was data. After compression, it becomes evidence. One mistake feels like decline. One dip feels like hierarchy. One comparison feels like confirmation. This creates the identity compression loop. Thin margin leads to increased volatility. Volatility creates identity attachment. Identity attachment creates anxiety. Anxiety leads to rushed execution. Rushed execution increases volatility. And eventually the conclusion becomes maybe I am not built for this. But compression did not remove capability, it removed protection. Most people respond incorrectly. They increase effort, more hours, more intensity, more comparison, more internal pressure. But compression is not solved by intensity, it is solved by architecture. If a structure bends under pressure, adding more pressure does not fix it, redesign does. There's a stable way to operate under thin margins. It has three layers. This is the structural response to compression. Layer one is execution stability. Under pressure, unstable performers improvise. They change routines, they overcorrect, they rush. This increases variability, and thin margins punish variability. Execution stability means fixed daily structure, predictable work blocks, consistent pre evaluation routines, standardized problem solving formats, no emotional improvisation on difficult days. You remove randomness from behavior. Even if outcomes fluctuate, your structure does not. Stability reduces volatility. Layer two is error neutrality. Compression magnifies mistakes, but mistakes are not destabilizing. Interpretation is. If a mistake becomes identity evidence, instability spreads. Error neutrality means every mistake is logged, categorized, traced to cause, and adjusted without narrative. Instead of asking, am I falling behind? You ask, what failed? Knowledge, process, timing, regulation. Mistakes become engineering data, not psychological verdicts. Layer three is identity decoupling. This is the deepest layer. If your identity recalculates after every evaluation cycle, you will never feel stable in a competitive system. Identity decoupling means your self concept is based on process adherence, structural discipline, and long term trajectory, not short cycle outcomes. You measure, did I execute my structure? Not, did I outperform? When identity stops oscillating with volatility, compression loses its destabilizing force. Compression is not punishment, it is calibration. It tells you exactly where slack was hiding. If you treat compression emotionally, you spiral. If you treat compression structurally, you refine. Elite environments do not demand perfection, they demand stability. And stability is built, not felt. Elite environments do not remove your potential, they remove your excuses. When margin disappears, your structure is exposed. If that exposure destabilizes you, it is information. Rebuild. Because once your structure no longer depends on slack, compression becomes refinement, not collapse.